Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Preppers Fireside, a nice unscripted ramble between like-minded friends, all theoretical, of course, and that's the only disclaimer you're getting. Today, I'm joined by TD Camper, aka Josh, the disabled camper. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Excellent. And Scottish Prepper 73 has joined us from his Frey Bentos headquarters.
No.
So if you can't buy Frey Bentos where you are, blame him.
My precious.
I can't find the steak ones anywhere. Honestly, I'm not even joking about that. I've found everything else, but the steak ones are just gone.
20 quid, mate, I'll send you one.
That's like that, is
it?
I'll wait till you've run out of toilet paper and I'll trade you. Right, so this week we had the D-Day celebrations. So remembrance at a humble time, which makes you think about what a whole generation endured and gave up so we could have our freedoms, which was great. And some of us stayed to the end, Rishi. The UK election heated up with the first televised debate. We won't go into sides, but shockingly, nothing's changed. Russia seems to be moving nuclear weapons towards Cuba, which sounds very familiar. Although all part of a training exercise, which also sounds very familiar. Michael Mosley went missing, but it's now confirmed that a body's been found, and it is him. So our thoughts go out to his wife and his family at that difficult time. And lots of top quality prepper channels have told us that the end is nigh. But again, it's not happened. And tomorrow we have to go to work. So, how's this prepper week been for you, Josh? Has the news been scaring you? Have you dug yourself a bunker yet?
No, and I haven't seen any news or done any prepping because you know my situation appears. I'm in and out of hospital all week visiting somebody, so I've not paid any attention to prepping at all. Actually, this has been quite nice to a degree, but
I don't believe for a second. Even if you've not bought anything, you've been thinking about prepping the whole time.
I did buy a tarp. I didn't completely ignore it. So yeah.
That's what preppers do when they go on holiday. They don't come back with a t-shirt, they come back with a new tarp.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Brian, how's your week been? Have you been digging bunkers? Worried about this end of the world? The nukes are in the air, according to one prepper earlier on today. The bombers are out and everything.
But they seem to be getting the clicks and the votes, so it's obviously working for them. I did notice Germany had announced that they've got their plan in place of looking at conscription and rationing and different things of what they will be doing. So that's Britain put something in black and white, albeit it's crap, and now the Germans have done the same.
Yeah. It's slight escalation, not quite to the scale of the clickbaiters do, but it is still worrying times and good time to be a more experienced prepper and have a head start on a lot of people, I'd say. Let's just, in the comments, we've got Monkey Wrench. He says, hello from Florida. We've got Lilith says, hi. Antor says, I'm a Russian prepper. Antor, I would be very interested to hear from you. My email address is on the channel main page. It's ukurbanprepper@gmail.com. Please send me an email. I'd love to get you on a podcast and speak to you. Mohammed Al Mustafa says, hi, hope everyone's had a good weekend. And Joe Smith finally caught a live stream. Hey, y'all. Michael Cranny, hi from Mick in Cumbernauld. All right. So this week we are talking about family and friends and whether we help them or just, throw them by the wayside. So it's obvious that you'd prepare for everyone in your immediate household. But how much of that do you just put on yourself? We'll go to you first, Brian. Or should you actively get everyone else involved in prepping, or should you just be the one worrying and let them live their life oblivious?
I think in an ideal world, everyone will be on board and taking their share of the load. But we don't live in that world, and like we were talking about earlier, the sad reality is a lot of family and friends will joke and go, well, we'll just come round to your house. Yeah, that's great and it's hilarious until something like that happens. And I would never turn them away, and I don't think either you guys would either, but it puts even more pressure on you. which isn't really very fair, because if something was to go really wrong, I mean, the other thing is, you might be a couple of miles away, but if something's really, it's say it was COVID and you weren't allowed to travel, you can't. You'd love to, but you just can't do it.
Yeah, especially if anything is that sort of lockdown kind of mentality, or even, God forbid, martial law or something like that, then it's a risk with anything like that. Josh, you live just with you and your dog at the moment. That's right, isn't it?
It is.
So does family, I mean, is your immediate concern just solely yourself, or have you got family nearby to bring in?
My sister lives in Wiltshire as well. My mother lives up here in Sale, Manchester. And so I've said to you, I've actually had this discussion with my sister this week, and she doesn't take prepping seriously. But what I did have to talk about was what would happen if SHTF happened, and who would I save out of the family? And I had to make some tough decisions myself this week. And I sort of thought, well, my mother's 83. She's over 200 miles away. I wouldn't be able to save her. So the only person I could save would be you, which is my sister. And that's quite a tough decision to have to make, because that's my mother, right? And but I know, hey, if I'm going to save anybody, I have to be safe doing it, right? So my safety has to be first too, right? So I can go and save somebody, but I might put myself in danger. I'm going to have to travel 200 odd miles to go and try and save my mother. I put myself in danger to get there. So A, she's old. She's probably not going to survive anyway. And B, I'm putting myself in danger to do it. I've got to save who I can save. My sister's 20 miles away. I can save her. I can't save my mother. It's a tough decision, but each and every one of us is going to go through it. And, you know, everyone at some point is going to have to make that choice. And it's tough, but it's something you've got to discuss.
Yeah.
You have to discuss it with your family. You really do.
How was that received by your sister when you were trying to convince her to prep? Because I know, or convince her to be ready, sort of thing, because I know it's a struggle most preppers have.
Well, like I said, she doesn't really take prepping that seriously. So I'm kind of steering her towards, well, at least have two weeks food in the house, and, you know, something to cook it on. And I think I'm getting a headway there, but this is taking a long time, right? It's taking a lot of discussion.
Baby steps.
It's like not even born steps, really. It's like, yeah, but you know, as for the discussion about my mother, I think it was hurtful for her, but she realizes that in order for us to survive, some of our family members aren't going to be saved, because I have to prioritize who I'm going to save, right, or help.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a tough one.
Definitely, that's one thing we're probably going to talk about more in depth with that. But with that in mind, Brian, how have you tried to convince any family members to prep, or at least be a bit more ready to, if nothing else, release the burden that would be on your own shoulders, right?
My oldest brother, he's very much on board with it, and he's probably working about in the chat, actually. He's very much an easy sell, and he's probably gathered just as much crap as I have, to be fair. And both were wives of both, I wouldn't say on board 100%, but tolerant of it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
My sister has probably been the most intransigent out of the group, who was dead against it. But when I did the 72-hour video, and I'm showing her the rat packs on it, she's up on a box of 10. So the government giving it an air of legitimacy, even though we know 3 days isn't enough. It's the start, and you're not looking to put the fear of God up people's rear end, but certainly the nudge in the right direction does no harm when you're just trying to promote a bit of common sense to people, and, you know, take some personal responsibility.
Yeah, somebody commented on one of my videos today. By all essential means, I don't think he's a prepper, or he wasn't a prepper as such, but he worked as part of a government agency that was doing simulations of how to get emergency food out to different areas in situations like this. He doesn't do that job anymore, and because of the job he did, he now stocks 30 days worth of food.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that should tell you a lot just there. But you kind of can't blame the government for not turning around saying stock 30 days of food, because there will people running around thinking that missiles are in the air if they did that. So maybe they've got to drip feed it in.
I think baby steps.
Yeah.
I think it's baby steps that if you can get people to get 72 and then time permitting, you get them to a week, it's an easier sell 3 days a week, 2 weeks in a month, even financially to spread the burden. It's not an insurmountable hill for them to climb then.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I just mention the comments? There's quite a few mentioned a different prepper channel in the comments. Although I appreciate and I do support many other channels, I don't support major fearmongers who gave advice years ago that would kill you today. So just be careful who you're mentioning, because the moderators will jump on you. Anyway, we'll jump off that one. So what about? So you've got your sister, Josh.
Yeah.
Did she come with a package deal, or is she on her own? What family and friends would you have come over to your house?
Geraldine, my sister, would come with her husband, and that brings problems in its own. But I can't go and help my sister without bringing her husband, and it's not because I don't like her husband; it's because her husband's had cancer, so he's got more of a disability than me right now. So that's issues. Other than that, I have a couple of friends that I would save, but again, they don't prep. They don't even want to talk about it, which is the hardest thing. So I can't have that discussion with them. And that makes it really difficult. How do you have a discussion with somebody that's so dedicated and does not believe that a bomb could drop at any point, or you know?
Have you broached that with them, that if something happened, or you know where I am, so they would think of coming to you?
Yes and no. Now, only in certain circumstances will I say you can come to me if it happens, because I know some of them won't contribute in the way that, because everybody's going to have to pitch in, right? It's not going to be just me. I can't do all the hunting and fixing and fire making, right? It can't just be me alone. So I'm kind of trying to get certain friends to come around the idea, because I know they would be useful too. And it might sound horrible, but whoever you have in your circle has to be useful, right? It's survival, right? So it's a real struggle. Some of my friends know they can come to me, and some of them don't, and that's simply because, again, it has to come down to who's going to survive and who isn't, who's going to put me in danger and who isn't. So it's difficult.
I've got an under 1-year-old, so I'm still trying to figure out how she's going to be useful. But
that's all right.
She could double up as a chimney sweep, I guess, if I just throw it on there. So, I mean, I've got this dilemma. I've got one brother not too far away, but I've got 13 stepbrothers and sisters, all with their own families, some with kids, some with grandkids. So, I mean, if I opened my doors, there'd be standing room only, and my food would be gone in a day.
That's the thing.
So where do you draw the line is the question. I mean, it's going to be hard to say no to anyone who's family or a really close friend. So what's your cutting point, Brian, and how do you deal with that?
It's going to be scenario dependent, but it will be a heartbreaking and tough choice between having to save your own children or having to save extended family. And I can't think of a worse situation to be put in. Hence why you're always trying to promote, for the love of God, please, even a couple of times, start adding things, because I don't want to be in that situation, because I would do it if I had to. I know I would, but it would break my heart to do it.
Yeah.
And it's avoidable. That's the worst of it. It's avoidable.
Yeah. Someone mentioned in the comments, it's like it's you have to deal with it at the time as it comes. You can only, you won't know till you're in that moment.
No, because I'm saying it, but I think
if
a friend comes to me, I'm going to help them, because that's my nature, right? But
this is the difficult thing, because that nature, as much as it's great, I mean, I'll help anyone. I'll help somebody with my penny if I can. But if that means the detriment of the survival of yourself or your immediate family, this is where it becomes really difficult. Now, I did see an interesting one. I think it was Idaho Prepper. Obviously, he's one of these American homesteaders who has more land and weapons than half the nation of the UK put together. But he had this idea. Obviously, when you get to a point, we said the other week that you never finished prepping, right? But if you're at a point where you're comfortable, what he started to do is put together little boxes, little plastic boxes, sealy lid, with
video.
the basics. So
Yeah.
like a water filter, some MREs, a way to cook, a way to hunt, you know, things like that. So it's like, you can't come in, but here, take this, it'll give you a fighting chance.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Saw that one, and then he said, "But don't come back." That was basically it. Here's your help. Now, don't come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that something you'd consider?
I think I've got enough that I could help in the short term extended family. It's always going to be scenario dependent. But if we can educate properly and encourage and motivate, we don't need to be there. We don't have to be talking about it. The time is to fix it is now, not to have to make tough choices further down the line.
Yeah.
That'll be something we're going to need to juggle if and when that ever happens. God forbid it never does. And it's going to just have to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. It's a cop-out, but that's just... You're not going to know until the situation, and it's tough on it.
Yeah, yeah, it is difficult. I've considered this as an option as well. Is that something you'd consider, Josh, putting like little packs together to?
Well, I hadn't until now. Yeah, I hadn't until now, and yes, well, I think that's a brilliant idea. And I never saw that video. Like I said, I haven't been watching. I've barely seen any of yours even. That is something I would consider. But still, sorry, your videos are great. I am. But
just put this out my back, Brian.
I would still have to be selective, because by giving out these packages, I'm declaring I'm self-sufficient and able.
Yeah, I don't think you'd advertise like, come and get your survival kit.
Yeah, I would probably still go more down the lines of just trying to encourage them to do it by themselves, with a bit of guidance from me, perhaps. But them buying it, because I don't want them to think that it's a free ticket either, right? Because I'm not. Yeah. I can't afford to be a free ticket, and plus, you know, I'm going to be able to save who I can save, and I'm going to have enough for who I can save in the immediate, you know, in small term sort of way. But yeah, I would consider it, but I'd still be careful.
Yeah. I'm thinking I'm going to get to the point where if I'm comfortable and I'm like, okay, I can survive up to a certain point, this is where I'm at. Obviously, I'll still want to buy more and put more, but I think I'm going to step over then to preparing. I don't know if anybody saw it, but I made like a bag for my car. It was like a fluorescent bag, but with like the basics in, like if you had to do a 3-day trek, something like that. I'm going to start preparing them for people that do knock on and stuff like that, saying like, this is what I've got to spare, and that's about it. So I think that's going to be, I'm just going to shuffle us around here purely because when I put a comment on, Brian disappears, but you can still see me.
You're not missing much, mate, to be fair. We're going to need a bit of a box.
All we can see is these talking free bentos when I put a comment on. So Lilith says that I'm in my parents' up a grab box for them with a few essentials in. Which is a good idea. Have you prepped for anyone else, Brian?
I've bought in stock on the assumption that people won't. So my daughter doesn't live here. She lives maybe about 4 miles distant from here with her partner and my granddaughter. And they don't prep at all. They don't want to talk about it. They don't believe in it. So I've got to make allowances for abject stupidity, for want of a better word, and I shouldn't have to. It's a burden, but it's mine to carry. Here's the thing, Mike. Family have got the luxury of having a choice, not to believe and not to prepare and laugh it off. You, me, Josh, people with families that are dependent on you, we don't have that choice. It's always going to be your burden to carry, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah. One way of justifying it, which I saw written down on a blog that I was looking at, was to say that children don't have a choice in whether they can prepare, but adults do.
They do.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's a thing about turning away somebody who has had that opportunity to prepare, especially if it's somebody you've told in that way. We'll quickly go to the comments before I lose track because I'm like 23 behind. This is an interesting one. Angela Connis says, I know that if SHTF, I wouldn't be alive in a year due to health, but I could teach my kids to survive. Now, passing on skills and knowledge, that's one of the key things. But I think it'd be the same battle. They've got to want to learn, right, Josh?
Yeah, they've got to want to learn. And also, to say that you wouldn't survive, if you teach your kids well, they will help you survive. So you may be there a lot longer than you think. So you're doing the right thing, but it's the will to survive. If you haven't got it, then just don't bother from the start, because it's just pointless, isn't it? So every day I prepare mentally. Every day I G myself up. You guys have seen me on the chat as well, haven't you? We're always starting the day off with a happy smile if we can. So I'm always G'ing myself up, preparing myself, knowing where things are, and how I'm going to get out of it. Even like I'm in the hospital, I'm checking exits and things. Where's my nearest route out and things like that. So I'm always prepared, and that's the key to prepping. That's the biggest thing you can do in prepping, is just be prepared for everything. And keep your head straight, because you're the only one you're going to rely on when it happens, right? Doesn't matter. You could have preppers all around you. Some of them are going to go, right? They're going to freak just as much as anybody else. You've got to be the one that takes the lead, right?
Yeah, some of them are, as soon as the SHTF, what they're going to do is going to pull out the giant machete that they bought last week. Now I get to use my arm. Dead.
Yeah,
I just cut my own wrist.
Yeah.
Monkey Wrench makes a good point. Monkey Wrench is actually joining me on the Prepper podcast soon. He's a US prepper. But he's not, essentially his channel's not a prepping, it's about machinery and fixing, which is obviously, an amazing skill to have in SHTF, so valuable person. He said that's like feeding wild animals. Once they know you have stuff to give, they will never stop coming back. When you refuse them, they'll try to take the lot. Very dangerous in a real world application. What do you think of that, Brian?
He's got a point, but it depends the audience that you're feeding. Now, family and extended family, I would trust 100%. But like the Idaho prepper, the bit that I liked when he was giving away his little lifeboat bags, he made it abundantly clear, look, here you go. This is all I can do. I've prepped for you because you didn't. Don't come back, right? I can't help you anymore. You wouldn't do that with casual acquaintances. It would only be with family, and you wouldn't advertise it. You wouldn't have a big sign up saying free shit, same as when if your lights all blazing away in the middle of a power cut. So yeah, you just common sense. I agree with his points. It's got 100% got merit, but for me, not with family. I disagree on that bit, but I agree with the principle 100%.
Yeah, I'm probably with you there. There's friends that I would consider family, but even them would be a bit of a push, because you don't always 100% know somebody, and once they get desperate, they could become a different person, right?
That's why I'm saying be selective. I don't want to be cruel to anybody, but I'm learning now to be selective, because it's my survival too, and I want the people that I love the most to survive. And I might love my friends, but they're not my family.
Yeah.
As much as I love them, they're not my family, and I have to look after those that are my immediate. Always.
Rod Solar UK says, have to be honest, tried to get people to start prepping, but they don't listen. As far as I'm concerned, they're on their own now. If all goes south, just immediate family now. Where do you draw the line? When do you stop trying to convince them, Brian? When do you think this is a lost cause?
It's never a lost cause, because my sister was always a lost cause, and as much as she was dead against it, she's now going to buy some rat packs. That extends to people in your home, your village, your town. Every person that decides to buy in a rat pack or a couple of tins, it's one less person that's going to be knocking down your door, either asking or looking to take. So I think the big problem is, well, for the pandemic, we've got all this crap going on in Europe, and yet there's still a lot of ostriches out there. I would say that the 72-hour thing from the government, that's opened a lot of eyes, just not opened them enough. But it's given it an air of legitimacy. So I'm hopeful, but I would never stop.
Yeah. I think because I moved you to the top screen, they think this is yours now, Scottish. You are the host. I'll sit back. You can ask the question. JD says, I've been meaning to do one for my kids in case they get stuck at school. Ideas for what's important at that age. This is something I have mentioned in a video briefly, because I was just referring to the government guidelines. If you saw that, it was when I did the floor is lava with the kids. But how much do you want them to know? That's the question. That's always a difficult one for me, this.
This came up earlier. Somebody asked a question on one of my videos about that and actually said, come to UK Urban Preppers channel tonight, they're doing a live, and ask your question. I don't know if it's the same person. I don't think it is. Make it fun. Don't make it part of a camping expedition. Make it transferable skill sets. Don't make them up a bag, stick it in a cupboard, and then bring it out and you must do this and there's an air of fear or whatever. Make it fun. Take them camping. Transferable activities. Don't make it a scary thing. Make it something that they're used to doing. Or let's get your bag out. Let's get your favourite teddy bear in it. We're going to go for a walk. Because then when you do have to go for a longer walk, it's just normalcy for them. It's just make it fun.
Yeah.
I'll add to that. I think with kids, you have to do it at their pace and their maturity, right? So as they get older, they'll want to do more. They'll be more interested. There's no point forcing it. So yeah, you do it at their pace, and if they're interested, you show them more, right? It's the aptitude that they have and in the interest they have. So if you only can teach them the basics, that's what you can teach them until they're ready to take it, right? So it's not, Mike, you always say you make it fun, and that should be right. Take them camping, take them foresting, go foraging and do stuff like that. Teach them bushcraft, because bushcraft can be really fun.
That's my next. That's my next stage. That's my next stage. Because although I do always take my kids camping, we're going camping again this year. They have kind of had it a bit luxury sort of thing, because they've got this whole, we have a night light at mum's, so they've got a light on in the tent and stuff like that. So now I've got to get to the stage where I'm starting to train that out of them a bit, so they're not fearful of the dark and they actually embrace that. Because if it comes to the point where they haven't got that, then you don't want to be trying to deal with a situation as well as two panicking kids. So I'm trying to train them around the potential situation of like a grid down power loss situation, but in a fun environment. So when we go camping this time, we're not taking torches and headlamps. I'm taking, sorry, people who are fire safety mental, I'm taking candles and paraffin lanterns and stuff like that. Teach them the safety behind it, the heat behind it and stuff like that, as well as it's a form of light.
I don't necessarily think you have to tell them what the emergency is. It's the fact that you're preparing for the emergencies. So we don't need to include the fear of, floods, fire, and nuclear bombs.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
So any emergency you teach them for should just be the fun thing, right? And it's all going to be useful no matter what you're preparing for, right? So
you say that, but I don't know what's going on at the schools. But my oldest boy out the younger one, oldest is 19 now, he can fend for himself. I don't know what I'm on about, but the oldest out of the two young boys, he's 9, and he came back from school the other day and he said, I'm really worried. I said, why? What are you worried about? And he said, the war that's coming. I'm like, Jesus, what are you talking about in a playground in primary school? So I kind of literally, they don't know about a lot of stuff, but to comfort him, I literally sat him on my knee and I said, look behind here, look behind this curtain here. I said, don't you worry, Daddy's ready. You'll be okay. And that kind of, he ran off and played after that. So, but yeah, I just want to address, it's kind of not on topic, but I need to pull this one up. Sambo says, I need to start, but I'm unemployed at the moment. Sambo, listen, you can throw loads of money into prepping, loads of money. All right. You literally can. It's a bottomless pit if you start throwing money at it, but there's also preppers that put nothing in it. All right. You can get food for free. You can look up foraging. You've obviously got the internet because you've on here. With the internet, you can plan, you can look up foraging, local knowledge, urban environment. There's absolutely loads you can do. If you can mentally prepare for that situation and that scenario, all the stuff money buys you, is just a bonus.
Yeah. Can I add on to that?
Yeah.
If you are struggling with food at the minute, don't forget you've got food banks. Now, food banks always overfeed you. So you're going to get spare tins, spare everything, right? So put those spare. Don't be ashamed to go to food bank. I've done it myself in the past. It's what it is, right? So you will always get extra food. They always overfeed you at a food bank. Don't be frightened to go to one. You can store that as well. You can keep what's left of that. You don't have to give it back to the food bank. They don't want it back, right? Anyway, so yeah, do it that way. Even if you haven't got a single penny to do it, you're allowed to feel okay to go to a food bank and do that, and you will always get extra. Put it away.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I used to have that same sort of stigma around the food banks till I went to one. And I didn't go to one for me. I was helping a friend because they needed the transport because, there was no food banks near them. And I went there and there's all walks of life there. They're all very friendly. There's no shame involved or anything like that. It's not like, come up with your ticket, please, sir, can I have some more? It was like a little supermarket. It was great. I was like, why am I spending money at Sainsbury's when you guys are here? But yeah, there's definitely loads you can do. Don't let unemployment or shortness of money stop that. Like I say, I've always said on most of my videos, planning is free. A notepad and pen, that's all you need to get yourself, and literally plan. Just plan. Speaking of planning, Brian, the question's got to be, I'm going to come to you first because Josh has done mental health podcasts with me. So I want his opinion after this, but how can you possibly mentally prepare to cut parts of your family out? If they're not all living around you, if you know they're a write-off because they're hundreds of miles away, how do you mentally prepare for that? Because if you lose a family member, you grieve, you have time. But in that moment, that could be grieving for 10 family members.
I think this leads on from one of your earlier questions. When do you stop trying to persuade people? And the answer to that was never. And the answer to that being never is so that if something like that happened, that I couldn't get to them, I did my best beforehand. So if I'm in good conscience, I've got some extra stuff in, and I've tried to get them to prep, and I can't get to them, I've made no preparations, that'll burn, that'll be a sore one to take, but I did my best. And I'll just need to learn to live with it at that time. God forbid it never ever happens. But that's why, like your question of don't stop trying. I don't think you can stop trying.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's how I would try and rationalise it.
Yeah. I think I have exactly the same thinking, but I also know how terrible I am with funerals and stuff like that. And that's my biggest concern, because how do you mentally train for that? Josh, what's your input on that? Oh, sorry.
Go on, Brian, finish.
I was just going to say, the thing is, you've also got little ones at home, right? So if it was that bad a scenario that you couldn't help anybody else, you couldn't get to them in the first place, your priorities are right in front of you. Fix and save what you can at the time. You've got to get your priorities straight. You did your preparation best beforehand. You tried to advise people. You either didn't take it or didn't take enough. You've got to prioritise the here and now. We'll deal with it later.
Yeah. So, Josh, let's get your input on this. What do you think? Is there a way we can start to mentally prepare for something like this?
Yes, and I'm doing that because I'm already deciding who I can and who I cannot save. So that's how you do it, really. It is now because you're preparing yourself. That's what you're doing. You're deciding. You're making the decision now, because you have to make the decision now. You can't make it at the time, and the emotions that you get at the time aren't going now. You're going to be in control of, right? So you're going to be able to sort of feel what you feel, and you'll feel easier about it because you've finally made that decision. It's not nice. Nothing you do is nice, but it's there. You've got it. I've written it down. This is what I can do. And I'm going to stick to that plan because that's going to guide me, right? And that's how I prepare for it. I mean, because when it actually happens, you're not going to have time to worry about it anyway. Let's be honest. You're going to think about yourself, your immediates around you, and those that you can save. You're not going to feel. You may feel I'm good as I can't get to them, but the guilt and everything else is going to come way later. That's when you're really going to suffer for it, right? Because you're going to feel like crap. You could feel like guilt. You'll know that they've died, So I say now, prepare now. Write down who you're going to save, who you're not going to save. As hard as it is, be prepared and say, right, that's the yes, that's the no, that's it. Right? And then stick to it and forgive yourself. Seriously, just forgive yourself now before it happens. Know that you can't help it. It's not your fault. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to be, like I say, I mean, that's great advice, but yeah, it's going to be one of those, isn't it?
It's not a win-win situation. You can't win, but the best you can do is prepare yourself now, really, and make your decisions now. You have to make them now, because those are the decisions you haven't got time to make at the time. You need to do it now. You have to be ready to go.
Yeah. Moderators, can you keep an eye on some people posting advertisements for fear-mongering YouTube channels? If you see that, then just silence them, please. JD's a monitor in there. She's all right. So if you see them advertising things like that, and if you are mentioning channels like that, please take it somewhere else, because we just try not to fearmonger. We're trying to just, all's going to be wonderful. Anyway, if it's not all wonderful, Brian, do you one thing I always see, and you see it on the TV shows that make us all look crazy, is when they're training all the family up as well. Self-defense, weapons training, things like that. Is that something you'd consider before the fact? I mean, obviously, we'll probably trying to get skills into people after the fact, but is it something you'd look at before?
I think everything you want to try and do before, you don't want to try to learn to swim when you're falling off a ship. You want to be swimming before that happens. In terms of weapons and things, in a hypothetical scenario, and you know why I'm being cautious with what I'm saying here, I do try and encourage family to get proficient with certain things, because pulling a trigger further down the line when you've got no experience with firearms might be a steep learning curve when there's not a lot of time.
And a dangerous one sometimes, yeah. Yeah,
they can be more a hindrance to you or anybody else. But again, this is hypothetical. Any form of training. I'm an engineer by profession, so whilst I'm not hands-on anymore, you get better by repetition. Whether you're an apprentice, you get through a journeyman stage, practice for everything. The only problem I would say is my own children, you're competing for their attention when they're being bombarded by TikTok, other social media, the TV. Plus, you were born old and never lived and don't know anything. What you say is get limited value. That's a very hard sell to try and get any skills that you have got. First aid, for example, that's a perfect example. I've got lots of first aid kits. I know how to use them. And then when I try to talk to the kids or my wife about it and say, you should do this, you should learn that. No, but you can do that. That's no bloody good if I'm the one that's bleeding out needs a tourniquet that they don't know how to use. So that's my ongoing real problem.
Yeah. I'm lucky in that sense, because obviously my partner's a care worker for mentally infirm and old people's home, and she's had to do every bloody first aid course you can think of. So,
ironically, based a nurse, I wouldn't let her put a plaster on.
Well, this is it. So, I mean, I've looked at the weapons side of things, hypothetically, because Nerf have started doing a crossbow, and I thought, if I get the kids that, if it ever hits the fan, at least I can hand them a crossbow and they know which end to point.
Obviously, we're talking about hunting small game with crossbows and things, even though it's illegal. But if it was a scenario where things had broken down and they wanted to hunt small games, when I bought my first small hand crossbow, I got all the kids out in the garden. Here, point it at the shed, pull the trigger. Right? Okay, it wasn't scary. They've all done it. They've all fired it, including the wife. They know how to fire a small crossbow.
Yeah,
it didn't do them any harm, and in time, with more exposure, they'll become more proficient.
Yeah. Were they worried about doing that, or were they excited about doing that?
No, there was a lot of nervous tension. They weren't comfortable, but again, when you hand it over, all right, bugger, I'll just go down this route and then screw it. Even shotguns, right? So my wife, my son, I make sure they know how to handle one, how to use one, how to clear it, how to hand it to somebody clear. Safety first, all the time, safety first, so they know how to hold and use a firearm. That's something that they've all done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had I put a thing up before I mentioned the self-defense guy I had the other day. He's obviously doesn't own them, but he's like done training with small firearms all the way up to like full rifles, automatic machine guns and stuff like that. And like I say, even if like for me, even if I don't have anything like that here, I think getting that training, getting that experience in firearms, like going out to a shooting club, because you can buy red letter days and experiences now these days, just getting that safety is probably a benefit to a lot of people.
Well, the thing is, even see the prepping thing aside, it's a lot of fun, right? There's a stigma in the UK versus shotguns, centerfire rifles, etc. There's a stigma attached to it. Well, look, if people are sensible and responsible and they're not cases, go along to clay pigeon shooting, go along to practical shotgun, go along to archery, crossbows. It's fun. Nobody's talking about lugging somebody with it. Just go and live your life and have fun. However, should there come to a situation the supermarkets are all shut and you need to go out and get a chicken or something to win, you've already done it.
Yeah.
The thing is with self-defense these days as well, when we were kids, perhaps Brian and me more, our dads would take us outside and teach us how to put our fists out, right? You know, what sort of thing.
I'm glad you said used to more. I feel so much younger
you're
now.
a little baby, 20 years between us, I think. But
Josh, you went from there to there.
But no, my dad would teach me self-defense. We don't have that anymore, and I think parents should be teaching. First of all, before you take them anywhere else to be trained, is a parent should teach their kids how to stand up for themselves, right? Because there are bullies out there, and we don't do that anymore. And I think that's real sad. But where the real teaching should come from you guys, right, to your kids.
Yeah,
Josh, my teacher, my mother taught me how to duck with flippers. Yeah. That's what she taught me at my age, duck.
Yeah, well, that's useful as well at times, don't you? You don't want to actually get hit, do you? You just want to get hit there.
I think I was going to go to the chat, but I'm pretty sure they're all just having their own conversation and talking about gold and all sorts now. I mean, talk about off topic. But Nelly on the Land did put that like kids love them real archery lessons and stuff like that. And actually, a place has started up near me doing that, so I might actually do that.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. There's why are we talking about gold backs and 1 gram hold bars and stuff like listen, look, you clearly don't watch all our videos, right? Because we've said there's no point stocking gold, because after the SHT, if you're stocking it for an investment now, great idea. If you're stocking it for SHTF, Tier Tawaki, you are wasting your money.
You can't eat gold.
Exactly. And it's not your 1 bar of gold, I'll give you 1 can of beans. And you know what? If you've nothing else to eat, you'll take it, right? So the person with the food and the supplies and the skills is going to have more bartering power than you with your silver and gold. All it is wealth retention.
2 bars for free Mentos.
2 bars for free Mentos. I'll give you 3 if it's one of those steak ones.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, stockpile. We won't go into stockpiling money. That's a completely different one. Have you guys got any other points to make on the family side of prepping before we wrap up? I don't want to just end if you've got something else to say.
Just to say now, get prepared now. Don't leave it and leave it and leave it. Do it now, because these are going to be the toughest decisions. These are going to be tougher than surviving, because they just are, because you're letting people go. Do it now. Don't waste time on it. Be comfortable with your decision, because once you've made it, there's no going back, because it's your life too. Remember that. You've got to save yourself. You can't save anybody else if you're dead trying to save somebody else that perhaps can't be saved. So tough, but do it.
Yeah, definitely. Brian, any final thoughts?
Like I've said in nearly every other video on life I've been in on, it's never too late. It's never too late to start prepping. Whether it's a tin of beans or a tin of tomatoes, or if you're like the other guy, he's not got a lot of money, go to the food banks, leave your self-esteem at the door, right? You're trying to protect yourself and your family. And I mean, it's not all bangs and bullets. It could be you're trying to protect them from having to go out in the winter time or in a power cut. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. It could be just to make your life a bit easier. You're prepared to make your life a bit easier. It's not all Third World War and things are going horribly wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah, definitely. It roboted a touch at the end there, but we got that. So just so you know, they'll all be in the description afterwards. But Josh's YouTube channel is TD Camper, which is the disabled camper. Josh, what's your last video about, and what's your next video about?
Well, the next video will come, but I've spent the last 2 weeks like a couple hundred miles away from home for emergency. But it is the next one will be a wild camp. I've sourced the next place, so we're gonna go and forage and do a bit of bushcrafting together.
Excellent.
Hopefully, when I can get to it. But yeah, that's what we're gonna do, and perhaps watch me fall over a bit, and that's normally quite funny. So,
excellent. Sounds good. Definitely be tuning in for that one. Save that for the bloopers reel.
Yeah.
Scottish Prepper 73 is obviously Brian's channel. What's your last video and next video coming up, Brian, or is it just unplanned chaos?
It was planned today, but things took a turn that meant I'll not be doing today's video till later in the week because I'm waiting on parts. But last video was basically me on holiday at a beach saying, live your life. Be prepared, but live your life. Don't forget to live in the moment, right? Be aware of the future, but live your life. Next video will be on a camper van. I built it for fun, but it could be a bug-out vehicle. So I'm going to do a tour of a camper van and how it was built, how the electrics work, plumbing system, gas system. If anybody's got any questions on that, they can let me know.
Excellent. So don't forget to check out both their channels after this. And you can also talk to us all on ukprep.co.uk, which is the forum. If you go there and sign up, just tell them I sent you. I think, well, I'm not even going to say it's my forum anymore. That's Josh's forum that I facilitated.
No, it's all joint. It's all joint. We're all in
my right-hand man practically just, running the whole thing. So, yes, Nelly on the land, much appreciated. Don't forget to hit the like button. We will be saying goodbye. But thank you for joining us. We will have all sorts of different chats like this with different guests joining us as well. Hopefully as many Sundays as we can get in as our schedules allow, all the way up until the point, obviously, that all those previous channels you mentioned in the chat tell us that the world's going to end. So as long as they don't do that and they're not right, which they never are. Can I say one thing about that? And I'm going to make enemies. I don't care if I make enemies at this point. If you're a fear-mongering YouTube channel, and it's an emergency red alert, it's nuclear in the air, oh no, it's the end of the days. They've still had time to make a thumbnail, edit the video, upload the video, do all the tags on the video, the description, things like that. YouTube to process it up to HD, and then publish it, right? If it was really that urgent, you won't see that alert, all right? Just take it with a pinch of salt, please. All these guys will tell you the same. It's not an instant thing to upload a video of a decent quality. It takes time. All right. So please take all that with a pinch of salt and approach everything with a level head. And like Brian said in his last video, enjoy life. So from the fireside, I'm going to say goodbye. Josh.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Stay strong. Keep moving.
Brian. Yep.
Later, folks.
And we'll see you all in the next one.